Just have a little agenda here outlined to get us started. Today we're going to look at SOCKETWorx. SOCKETWorx is a web-based application that EC's developed. Today we're going to focus on accessing pipe specification information and then also viewing and marking up pipe specification PDF files. These are the two dimensions of SOCKETWorx that we'll be exploring today. There's certainly much more to it, but this is the scope of today's webinar. SPECWorx has been added as a module to SOCKETWorx, so users can now log in online and process PRJ files. Once they're processed, they're available for viewing, inspecting, and those are the primary aspects of the module that we're going to explore today. Exporting is also possible, so most stakeholders want to get their content out to Excel. We have that capability as well. And then finally, we're going to be able to download the PRJ files and also the companion files. So a lot of times there's user shapes and pipe supports and these companion files that have to accompany a PRJ before they go into production. So this is the agenda for today, and we'll go live with the application in a minute. So again, just we have SOCKETWorx. Might be the first time for y'all to see it today. It's a web application. In today's vein, we're trying to help companies digitize and centralize their piping components. Also going to maybe expose y'all to ElectroWorks today, which is a product EC's had for a long time, but it's basically being able to model cable tray and conduit with CADWorx. So we'll provide a little exposure to the spec that goes along with that. So SPECWorx is a module. It sits within SOCKETWorx, and it is built to process PRJ files. In this way, users can query and inspect the content, export the queries to Excel, and then ultimately download the companion file. So SOCKETWorx is an online app. SPECWorx is a module with all this capability. Just to provide a little bit of a workflow associated with SPECWorx. So SPECWorx does not produce a PRJ file. We still have to utilize the CADWorx specification editor to create the PRJ content or the PRJ file. We refer to it as a CADWorx project file. Once that project file is created, then users can upload that PRJ file to SPECWorx. SPECWorx automatically processes that PRJ file and then makes it available for inspection. The idea is to have a hold point there where perhaps non-CADWorx spec editors can modify, review, even perhaps approve, make comments, export. If there's change to be made, then the PRJ would have to be modified by, let's say, a CAD admin or a piping designer, and then the process would start all over again. Ultimately, we're striving to get to an approved project content or pipe spec content that's suitable for production, and then that becomes available for download. But the main goal of SPECWorx, the main purpose of SPECWorx, is to provide some inspection and some QC dimensions to the specification development efforts. So with that, we're going to go right into the application and start taking a look at SPECWorx. So let me get started here. I'm at SOCKETWorx.com. So it is online. You go to SOCKETWorx.com. If you do not have an account or you're not already logged in, it's going to take you to the login page. So once we're at the login page, then it's just a matter of logging in by putting in your email and your username and password. Once we're logged in, we hit a landing page. The landing page is a dashboard. So I'm landing on an upstream facility demo project here, which is a P&ID project where I've got line tables and instrument tables and all sorts of tables. But SOCKETWorx is all about connecting to a database. So we've got multiple databases here. Let me bounce over to our refinery project. So again, another P&ID project with line tables and instrument tables, all the tables in the database. But our focus today is on specs. So we have a simple database table set up for specs. I've got two tables here I'm going to expose you to, SPECWorx and our pressure class specification. So I can click on one of these bars and it's going to walk me into the database table. Here I'm in the SPECWorx table. So this is the offering of SPECWorx. And we have conduit and B-line cable tray and Hoffman wireway. And all of these are associated with manufacturer content. So in this vein, I'm able to click on the associated PDF file that we've tied to these to represent basically the dimensional standards for all of these particular specifications we developed. I'll walk into the B-line. So I've got the B-line catalog sitting behind the specification. That gives me the dimensional reference for all of the components that we've put together. So just a way to connect the dimensional information with the piping specifications. One way to use the interface. Let me go ahead and switch over to the pressure class table here. And this is just a list of a short list of specs. We've got a 150-pound spec, a fiberglass spec, some VIC spec, HDPE spec. Now let me bounce into the pressure class specification here, and this would be your typical hard copy specification that you could attach to the table. Here we can use SOCKETWorx to go ahead and highlight and use the PDF markup capabilities. This is a solid fill. Let me change this to a transparent fill so we can see what's behind it. So I'm just making modifications to the markup here, making it a little bit more transparent. But now I can see that I have a markup, and I'm going to pick on this 2-inch piece of pipe here, and I'm going to make a comment. And my comment here is to change from SCAD 80 to standard weight, let's say. So let me get standard weight typed in here. And then what we're trying to do is centralize the markup of hard copy specifications so that everybody who logs in can see the notes and the comments and all the PDF markups that are taking place here to try and drive change on the specifications over time. So we're able to hang on to these markups, save these markups, make these markups invisible, typical PDF markup capabilities. So this is all part of SOCKETWorx and SOCKETWorx capabilities. Database tables, and then also associating what we call a primary document, PDFs, and rendering the PDFs. So just bouncing from the dashboard into these tables, yeah? Now, if I wanted to append these tables and add additional specifications, then SOCKETWorx has the ability to add rows to a database. So I don't have to be a database administrator to do this. I can just add additional rows. And then if I have privileges, I can go into edit mode and I can modify those records and save these changes. So I'm just going to add a couple lines here if I can talk and type at the same time. Just going to add a 300 class specification here. I'll go ahead and finish off this row. I'm going to give it a PDF file name. This is how we link the PDF file. We just put in the file name, and then I'll go ahead and copy this row, and I'll put it in here as a 600. Just make a few modifications to this. So I'm just adding a couple records to the table with the idea that I want to centralize my spec list basically, and all the associated data that I choose to maintain on my specifications, and then also can associate the PDF file to it. You know. This change event is saved. We know who changed it, when they changed it, what the values were before, and what the values were after. Another key feature of SOCKETWorx is change control. So I added them, and if I add them, I can just as simply delete them. And again, this is all a role-based system with rights and privileges. I've got the rights to delete these records as well. So adding, removing records, very easy to do with SOCKETWorx. All right, I'm going to move away from the SOCKETWorx functionality and walk into the SPECWorx module. I've already uploaded these two PRJ files, the SPECWorx PRJ file and the pressure class PRJ file. And here we can see the history. If I was to upload again, I would see another row underneath each of these PRJ files where we're able to extract the history. I'm going to upload the CADWorx out-of-the-box PRJ file live here. So we just pick the PRJ file and hit the go button, and it's going to upload. It just takes a few seconds to upload. Once I upload it, the grid's going to refresh, and I'm going to see inch spec there in the middle. So that was added there. So each of these PRJ files have all the specs within them. If I click on the information button, I can see all of the specifications that were contained within these PRJ files. So I expand each one of these, hit the information button, and there's the out-of-the-box CADWorx 150 through 1500. If we take a look at the EC pressure class spec here, we're going to see the 150 and some non-metallic and the Victaulic specs that we have as examples here. So just some very generic information. Now there's two buttons next to each of the specifications. One is to go to groups, the other one is to go to parts. So we offer two views into the PRJ file. Here's the groups. We're grouping by size range. So for 1/2 through 2 for pipe, we've got SCED 80. For 3 through 24, we've got standard wall. So all of these are grouped by size range. We also highlight all the optional components. So this is going to be very typical to what the content looks like in the PRJ file, where you get a list of components by grouping or by size range. I can also look at the PRJ content through parts or the individual items. So I go from 100 groups to now I've got over almost 1,300 items that'll fall out of my CADWorx piping specification. These are each size. So if I sort here by program code or sort by sequence, I get all the number ones. There's all my pipe, 1/2 through 24 inch with the respective long descriptions. We can look at this in different views. So we have some out-of-the-box views. This is the model data. So we can look at fabrication items or erection items, what layer the stuff's going to be on. I can look at the material information. So when people are building specification, if they use the material assignment, we can see the materials and the specs that have been assigned. We can look at the project data. So here we're going to see the component types and the short descriptions, long descriptions, the data table that was used, for example. But there's a lot of content behind here. So we now provide the users the ability to build their own view. I'm going to create my view here. And I have all the fields that are made available to me to go cherry pick and build my own view. So I'm going to go find some more information here. I can use the filter to go find long description. And then short description here. Let's go find the short. These are common fields that I would say people want to go look at. I can control the order. That shouldn't be in there. Yeah, that looks okay. So here we can go ahead and save this view. This is my view, and now we can go beyond just the out-of-the-box can views, if you will, and start creating your own custom views. And they show up in the list after you add them. So all this view is good, but people are going to want to get their hands on it. So we have the export button up on top. This is what we call a quick report, and an email gets sent to you because you're logged in as you, and you can copy your friends and family if you so desire. Okay, so we can do this at the parts level. We can also do the exporting at the group level. So the export button shows up on parts and groups with the same functionality. All right, so let's go back into the project file. I think the most beneficial aspect of SPECWorx is to do the QCing. So if we look at the out-of-the-box CADWorx specification as an example we just uploaded, we'll see lines highlighted or the text font in red. This is an indication that there's a problem, and this is what we're trying to get to with SPECWorx. SPECWorx is going to find these problems. We go ahead and annotate the lines with @ signs where there's missing or invalid data. And here we can see there's over 60 items in the out-of-the-box CADWorx spec that have an issue. Now, we can look at the size. It's got a lot to do with 22 inch and 26 to 48 inch. So when we get into the large bore stuff, the CADWorx PRJ file falls down a little bit. But at least I know where they are. and I know that I can go into the PRJ file and fix this. We also use invalid as a flag. So if we have an invalid field or an invalid spec, if you're using the custom fields, then we can chase those down as well. So key is looking for red in these uploaded PRJ files and letting SPECWorx QC your PRJ files and your specs. No red is the ultimate goal. Yeah. So overall, that is the objective of SPECWorx, is to get the information out, get a valid PRJ file. But once that's done, then we want the ability to download. And download is right back to the project, and we have the download button next to each PRJ file here. All you have to do is click the download button, and you're going to get a PRJ file exported. And that PRJ file, if you're the one that imported it, is going to be the same. But for example, ECE is using this now to deliver PRJ files that we produce to technical service providers and our clients. So we upload it and then make it available through SPECWorx for download. Not only the PRJ file, but also any companion file as well. So we have all this information centralized and digitized for consumption by users around the world through the SOCKETWorx interface.